When I was in my first year of university, I was the poorest in the entire class. There was a girl named Huban whose family was rich, the kind that owned mines. In a game of truth or dare, with nothing better to do, she lost, and the bet was 90,000 yuan. Everyone thought she would back out, but she transferred the money at that very moment with a four-word note. He who bets pays. From that day on, my life changed completely. The seafood rice that I never allowed myself to eat in the cafeteria, I started ordering it every day. The milk tea shop below the dormitory, I went from being the one who worked there to being a regular customer. The postgraduate preparation materials next to the library, I was finally able to buy the complete set. She never asked me how much I had spent, and I never gave her explanations. 4 years later, on graduation day, my account had 80 cents and 2 fens. Her money had lasted exactly until I received my diploma and my job offer. 4 years after that, I saw a figure curled up under a bridge. A dirty face, tattered clothes, but those eyes, I recognized them. They said her family had gone bankrupt. Her parents had fled, and she was carrying all the debts alone. I knelt down and reached out my hand. Are you coming with me? The phone rang while I was on the third floor of the cafeteria, eating in a hurry, a bowl of white rice and free soup. The mobile screen lit up, showing the name Sue. I answered with fingers stained with rice. I frowned. Huban, the richest girl in our class. What did her birthday have to do with me? Better not to go. I hung up and looked at the half bowl of rice that remained. No appetite. Going meant spending money. The bill for that night alone would cost at least 200 or 300 yuan, half of my living expenses for the month. I wouldn't go. But it was Huban herself who had requested my presence. I didn't have many friends in the class, apart from my roommate who made friends easily. It wasn't wise to make an enemy of her. I put down the cutlery and left the cafeteria. The autumn wind was a bit cold, and I adjusted the old jacket, faded from so much washing. The venue wasn't far from the university. I arrived walking in 20 minutes. The receptionist at the door looked me up and down with something in his eyes that I preferred to ignore. I went straight to the third floor. The door to private room 302 was open with thundering music. Upon pushing the door, I saw a huge private room with more than 20 people, the table full of fruit, snacks, and imported liquor. Huban was in the center in a beautiful dress like a princess. So saw me and waved me over. I sat on a sofa in the corner without anyone paying attention to me. Everyone was surrounding Huban, laughing, singing, playing dice. I felt out of place. The air smelled of money. After a while, someone proposed something more exciting. Truth or dare? Everyone cheered. The bottle began to spin on the table. I prayed that it wouldn't point at me. It passed several times, brushing past me until the mouth of the bottle pointed at Huban. Everyone cheered. Huban, truth or dare? Huban had been drinking a little, her cheeks were flushed, and she was smiling. There was a boy named Lisa, always wanting to draw attention. His eyes shifted and looked at me. All eyes concentrated on me at once. I froze. Huban turned and gave me a look with that indifferent curiosity typical of rich girls. Lisa smiled with a very loud voice. The private room went silent for an instant, and then erupted in even louder laughter. 90,000. Lisa, are you crazy? It's just a joke. Why so much? Exactly. How is Huban going to be able to... Lisa provoked them. What's wrong? She doesn't dare anymore? If she doesn't dare, let her drink 3 penalty glasses. He just wanted to see Huban look ridiculous. And me too. Everyone looked at Huban. I felt my face burning. 90,000. A figure they pronounced with such ease. My mother had called a few days before saying they were 20,000 short to finish building the house and that she couldn't sleep from the worry. I was sitting there like a clown. Huban said nothing. She just looked at me with a calm expression without mockery. I looked at her. She looked at me as if she were evaluating the value of that dare. so gave me a nudge and whispered, "Don't take it seriously. Lisa is an idiot." I couldn't not take it seriously. When your dignity is trampled by money in front of everyone, you cannot not take it seriously. Suddenly, Huban smiled, took her phone from the table, and opened the bank app. Those around her froze, believing it was a joke. She looked up and looked at me again. "What is your account number?" The private room fell into a deathly silence. Only the music kept playing. Everyone looked at Huban, then at me. Lisa's smile froze on his face. So was also stunned. I opened my mouth without knowing what to say. I felt the blood rushing to my head. My throat went dry. I couldn't utter a word. Huban was patient. She held the phone and asked once more, "Your account number?" Almost mechanically, I recited a series of numbers. She looked down, and her fingers flew across the screen. Those in the private room looked at each other, murmuring, "Really? It can't be. It's 90,000. It's not worth it for Pride." I watched her intently. Her expression was one of absolute concentration, as if she were completing a very ordinary task. A few seconds later, she put the phone down, looked up, and looked at Lisa. "Done." Lisa's expression was horrible. Huban interrupted him with a serene voice. "He who bets, pays." Having said that, she took a glass and drank a sip without looking at me again, as if the matter were already settled. The phone in my pocket vibrated. With almost trembling hands, I took it out. The screen glowed with a bank message. "Your debit card ending in has received 90,000 yuan. Current account balance, 90,088.82 yuan." That string of zeros stung my eyes. 88 yuan with 82 fens. Everything I had left to live on that month, plus 90,000. In total, 90,088 yuan with 82 fens. I put the phone in my pocket with my palm soaked in sweat. I stood up. Everyone looked at me with complex expressions: amazement, envy, morbid curiosity. I said nothing. I turned around and walked toward the door. So called out to me, "Chen-Chi, where are you going?" I didn't turn back. I left the venue. The cold wind hit my face. I shuddered. My mind was blank. I walked for a long time through the street without knowing where to go. I passed a 24-hour store. I went in and stood for a long time in front of the shelves. In the end, I took the most expensive brand of instant noodles, a small sausage, and a soy egg. Total, 15 yuan. Before, I only allowed myself to buy 3 yuan noodles in a bag. I returned to the dormitory with the purchase. There was no one there. And the others had not yet returned. I boiled water. The steam from the noodles rose, and it was then that I felt I was alive again. I sat at the table, took out the phone, and read the message again. 90,000. I counted the zeros over and over. With that money, my mother could stop losing sleep. I could stop going to look for free soup in the cafeteria. I could buy that set of postgraduate materials I had wanted so much. I could live like a person. I finished the noodles down to the last drop. Then I took out a notebook and a pen. My hand still trembled a little, but my gaze was very clear. On the first page, I wrote 4 words: 4-year plan. I started to calculate. 4 years of university, 48 months. Living expenses, 800 yuan per month. In 48 months, 38,400. Tuition, 5,000 per year, 3 remaining years, 15,000. Materials and books, 5,000. Family house, 20,000. Total, 78,400. 11,600 left over as an emergency reserve. Untouchable. I noted each item in great detail. Those 90,000 were not an unexpected stroke of luck. They were Huban's lost bet and my sustenance for the next 4 years. I had to make good use of it, hold on until graduation, get a good job, and return the money with interest. When I finished writing the last word, it was almost dawn. I looked at the plan in the notebook and felt a calm I had never felt before. The next day, at the door of the classroom building, I saw Hubin. She was with some friends, chatting and laughing in a different dress from the day before. She saw me, hesitated for an instant, and then, as if nothing had happened, went back to looking at her friends. I also lowered my head and entered the classroom quickly. Between us remained 90,000 yuan, and only that. My life changed. The first thing was the food. I stopped going to the third floor to look for free soup and started going to the seafood window on the second floor. Shrimp rice at 25 yuan per portion. The first time I ordered it, the food lady looked at me twice in surprise. I paid without flinching, took the tray, and sat in a corner. The shrimp were fresh and springy. I ate slowly, chewing every bite with care. So sat in front of me with his luxury menu and made a face of amazement seeing my shrimp rice. Since I didn't want to talk, he pouted and didn't ask more. Only from time to time did he look at me with a strange expression. The milk tea shop in the dormitory block, which I used to just walk past, I now visited every afternoon to buy the cheapest lemonade, 8 yuan. The girl who worked there already recognized me. Senior student, lemonade again today? I would take that cup and walk back to the dormitory slowly, savoring it for an hour. The water was sour with a touch of sweetness. The complete set of 12 postgraduate preparation books from the bookstore next to the library cost 880 yuan. I had looked at it many times just browsing. Now I went in, told the bookseller I would take it all, paid, and left carrying a pile of new, heavy books. The sun warmed my back. The following weekend, my mother called, her voice full of the usual anguish. "Gee, about the money. Your father went to ask for a loan again and they told him no." "Mom, don't borrow anymore." "And if not, what do we do? The site foreman is on top of us." "I have it." Silence on the other side. After a long while, my mother's voice came through, broken by crying. "You have it? Where did you get money? Have you done something foolish?" "No, the university gave me a scholarship, and with what I had saved, I reached 20,000. "A scholarship? So much? A national one?" I didn't stop to lie. "But you, how do you manage to live?" "It's enough for me. Send me the account number. This afternoon I'm going to the bank." I hung up, went to the bank, and transferred the 20,000. As I left, I felt the sky was a little bluer. I crossed off the first item in the notebook. I stopped giving private lessons and helping in the cafeteria kitchen. All my time was for studying. Library, study room, books thick as bricks. Huban and I were still classmates. In the lecture halls, she was in the first row, I was in the last. In small seminars, we sometimes ended up in the same group. She never spoke to me. I never looked for her. Once we had to do a presentation together. The classmates looked at us with ambiguous expressions. After that, everyone in class knew that Huban had given 90,000 yuan to the poorest boy. All sorts of rumors circulated, that we were dating, that she was supporting me. She seemed not to hear them, she just looked at me. "Which part are you taking care of?" "The last 3 chapters." And she turned around to talk to others. We didn't exchange another word. I searched for the material, made the slides, and the day before the presentation I sent her the file. She responded with 2 words. Received. The next day we went up to the stage. Each explained their part. It wasn't a brilliant collaboration, but there were no errors either. The professor gave us a good grade. Going down, she walked in front and I followed her. Almost at the door, she stopped suddenly and turned. "Well done." It was the first time she had said anything to me since that night. It wasn't a question or a request, but a calm assessment. I nodded and she left. Her figure, just like that night at the karaoke, proud, distant. Upon arriving at the dormitory, I opened the 4-year plan notebook, and on a blank page I wrote next to Huban's name. Previous collaboration, once. Then I crossed it out forcefully. It was a ritual to remind myself that between her and me, apart from the money, there was nothing else. In the second year of university, I won the national scholarship, 8,000 yuan. I didn't touch it, I kept it in another card. It was the first capital for my repayment plan. I continued executing my plan with rigor. 801 a month, not one more, not one less. I kept the accounts in a small notebook down to the last cent. A pen, 1.50 noted. A meal, 12 wen noted. Class fee, 20 wen noted. So said I lived like a robot. Gee, isn't it too much? You're not short of money anymore. Why do you kill yourself like this? I couldn't explain it to him. He didn't understand. Those 90,000 were not money to me. It was a rope tied around my neck with the other end in Huban's hands. I could only cut that rope little by little with my own effort to breathe freely again. In the second semester of the second year, the school organized the sports games. The tutor couldn't find anyone for the 3 kilometers and so signed my name. Chi, since you're always running or running to the library, you must be in shape. Give the class some glory. I didn't object. Running doesn't cost money, and besides, it exercises the body. The day of the race was very hot. In the most normal shorts and t-shirt I had, I got on the starting line. The starter pistol fired. I ran at my own pace without looking for a position, just to finish. In the last lap, I was exhausted. Sweat blurred my eyes, my lungs seemed to burn. Passing in front of the main grandstand, I looked up instinctively. Huban was sitting there with the student council leaders, in the corporate uniform and a sun hat. She seemed to be talking to someone beside her with a slight smile on her face. Under the sun, her skin glowed white. She didn't look at the track, she didn't look at me. In her world, that race, which was perhaps a bit boring to her, maybe wasn't worth as much as a chat with her friends. I looked away and kept running with gritted teeth. Crossing the finish line, I collapsed on the ground, exhausted. So ran to help me and handed me a bottle of water. 4th place. Chai, you're very good. You almost took a prize. I panted without being able to say anything. I only thought that the distance between Huban and me was like that 3-kilometer track. I was running below with all my strength, soaked in sweat, in a miserable state, while she was always sitting in that elevated grandstand, serene, as if it were nothing. That night, in the 4-year plan notebook, I wrote a line. Repayment plan activated. Initial capital 8,001. Goal 90,001 exactly. It was no longer a fantasy in the air. I had the first brick. Time passed quickly. My life was like a set program. Classes, food, library, sleep. I rarely participated in collective activities or spoke to anyone. The classmates had already gotten used to my solitude. They only knew that Chenchi was a weirdo with terrifying grades. Only I knew that I couldn't stop. I feared that if I stopped, that enormous debt would crush me. In the 3rd year, I started working on projects with a professor with an allowance of 500 wen a month. Additionally, I accepted online programming jobs in my spare time. Exhausting, often until dawn. But every month the repayment account grew by 1,000 to 2,000 wen. Seeing that number grow gave me a little peace of mind. Huban's life seemed never to change. Always the center of attention, always in beautiful clothes, arriving at class in a brand-name car I didn't even know how to name. We continued without communicating. Only when we crossed paths, her gaze would brush against me for a second, like someone seeing a familiar stranger. I accepted it with calmness. We had never belonged to the same world. Those 90,000 were an accident and also a transaction. She paid to win a bet. I changed my dignity and 4 years of life for a chance to change my destiny. The transaction was still in progress. I was striving to be a worthy counterpart. The 4th year arrived. With fewer classes, everyone began to focus on the future, preparing for postgraduate studies, civil service exams, or looking for work. The dormitory hallways echoed with interview calls and, from time to time, suppressed weeping. I was also very busy finishing my final degree project and preparing for tests and interviews at several large companies. The 4-year plan was almost reaching its end. Every expense was clearly recorded. I had squeezed those 90,000 until the very last drop. They had built my brain and maintained my minimum dignity. So mentioned to me that she seemed to be preparing to go abroad. They had arranged everything for her, an Ivy League university, and upon graduation, straight to Wall Street. A born winner. he said. I nodded without feeling anything special. It was the life path that belonged to her. One ordinary afternoon, I left the library, and as I passed by the university's artificial lake, I saw a familiar figure, Hu Ban. She was sitting alone on a bench by the lake without her usual entourage. She was wearing a simple white dress and looking at the water thoughtfully. The golden light of the sunset bathed her softly. She didn't have that usual aura of distant pride. She looked a little sad, even fragile. I stopped in the shade of a nearby tree. I didn't know why she was there alone. Perhaps problems with the university application. Perhaps a fight with a friend. Many thoughts crossed my mind without any being certain. She sat there in silence while the lake wind moved her hair. After a while, she took something out of her backpack. It looked like a small music box. She wound the mechanism, and a crystalline, enchanting melody rang through the air. Castle in the Sky. She held it in her palms with her head bowed, motionless. I couldn't see her face, but I perceived a sadness emanating from her and spreading around her. It was a Huban I had never seen. In my memory, she was always radiant and invincible. She could transfer 90,000 without blinking and complete a collaboration with me without any expression. She was like a perfect, emotionless sculpture. Now, that sculpture seemed to have a small crack. Suddenly, I remembered the expression on her face when, on that day in freshman year after making the transfer, she looked up and said, "He who bets, pays." Calm, cold, but with something in the depths of her eyes that I couldn't decipher then. When the sky grew completely dark and the street lamps by the lake flickered on, Hubin put away the music box, stood up, and left slowly. At no point did she notice I was there. Back in the dormitory for the first time in a long while, I didn't open my ledger or review the repayment plan. I sat at my desk, my mind blank for a good while, with the image of her figure by the lake and the melody of Castle in the Sky spinning in my head. For the first time, I realized that Huban was perhaps not as she appeared. In that glittering world, she might also have her own worries and loneliness. Those 90,000 yuan perhaps meant nothing to her, but what did that dare mean to her? And that he who bets pays? It was the first time I asked myself, and I found no answer. Between her and me, there was a world I couldn't cross. The only thing I could do was finish our transaction as soon as possible and withdraw from her world for good. I opened my computer and began reviewing my resume. Interview notifications wouldn't be long. I secured an offer from one of the best internet companies in the country with compensation that exceeded my expectations. The day I signed the contract, I walked out of the company building and let out a long sigh under the sun. 4 years of endurance and effort had finally borne fruit. The first thing I did was call home to tell my mother the news. She cried on the other end of the phone, repeating over and over, "He made it. My son made it." My eyes grew damp too. That night in the dorm, I opened the 4-year plan notebook for the last time. On the final page was the financial summary. Income, 90,000 yuan exactly. Expenses, tuition, 15,000. Living expenses, 36,800. Books and materials, 4,800. Sent home, 20,000. Contingencies, 1,300. Total expenses, 77,900. That was the main part. The small expenses were in another notebook. In 4 years, almost nothing was left of that 90,000. I checked the balance. It was 90,088.82 yuan when I started. Now only 82 fens. Exactly according to plan. A perfect ending. I closed the notebook. It had fulfilled its mission, that notebook which guarded 4 years of youth, humiliation, and struggle. The repayment account already had more than 30,000 yuan, far from 90,000. But now I had a stable, well-paid job. The rest was just a matter of time. The day of the graduation ceremony, the weather was beautiful. Everyone was in their robes, taking photos like crazy around campus. Hugs and farewells everywhere. I was like an outside observer standing still on the sidelines. I didn't have many friends. The only one with whom I had a good relationship, Sue, had signed for a job in his hometown and was leaving by train that same afternoon. I looked for Huban all morning without finding her in the crowd. Perhaps she hadn't even come. For someone like her, a graduation ceremony might not mean much. I felt something. I couldn't tell if it was disappointment or relief. I had prepared for a long time to thank her in person that day and also to tell her I would return the money, but I couldn't find her. As I was just about to leave, a voice came from behind. Chenchi. I turned around abruptly. It was Huban, also in her gown, her hair loose over her shoulders with a touch of light makeup. Very beautiful. She was standing alone not far away, looking at me. Congratulations. Same to you, you got an offer? Yes. Good. Silence between us. Around us, the hustle and joy. The two of us stood there like a shot from a silent, independent film. I wanted to speak about the money, show her my account with the 30,000, tell her my repayment plan, but when it reached my mouth, I swallowed it. Before her, who was going to Wall Street, my salary and my plan would seem ridiculous. I didn't want to show my poverty and smallness to her again, but she spoke first. I'm going to the United States. Yes, have a good trip. She looked at me with a very deep expression. Chenchi, you don't have to return that money. I froze. I lost it on the bet. It has nothing to do with you. You've already achieved what you wanted on your own, right? Having said that, she turned around without waiting for my response and left. I watched her blend into the crowd until she disappeared. A black car was waiting at the campus gate. She got in and vanished quickly. I stayed in that spot without moving for a long, long time, with the diploma and degree in my hand, weighing like lead. She said I didn't have to pay her back. She said I had already won, but my chest felt emptier than ever. Our transaction had been unilaterally canceled by her. She hadn't even given me the chance to settle the debt between us. That rope I had tried with all my might to cut little by little. She had cut it with a simple wave of her hand. I had thrown a punch with all my strength and hit cotton. Empty and uncertain. 4 years finished. My story with Huban ended too. Or so I thought. The first day of work, the colleague assigned to show me the company took me from one place to another. Huge windows, skyscrapers in a row outside, everyone walking hurriedly, faces a mix of exhaustion and euphoria, typical of the elite world. The air smelled of caffeine and money, a smell similar to the karaoke bar 4 years ago, but completely different. There, money was waste and a game. Here, it was the goal and the fuel. I adapted quickly, or rather I fitted in without transition, into the way of life I had led for 4 years. Self-discipline, efficiency, clear goals. Others arrived at 9, I at 8. Others left at 6. I stayed until midnight. My colleagues called me the sacrifice king, first in jest, then with respect. I didn't care. They pursued promotions, raises, bonuses, stock options. I pursued a number, 90,000. I opened a new bank card. As soon as the salary arrived, after deducting basic expenses, the rest went straight there. I no longer imposed the rigid limit of 800, but I kept the habit of frugality. No luxuries, no useless social relationships. My only hobby was the building's gym. My life was simple as a straight line. 1 year later, I was the technical pillar of the team. 2 years later, I was leading an important project independently, and the year-end bonus was 6 figures. 3 years later, I was promoted to project director with a small team under my charge. The repayment account had long since exceeded 90,000. I calculated even the interest at the highest rate for bank financial products over 8 years and rounded the figure, 120,000 yuan. The money was ready, but the creditor had disappeared. After graduation, Huban vanished as if the earth had swallowed her. I searched all social networks without finding any active account that fit. I asked So, he knew nothing. She went to the US. She's not from our world anymore. How would there be contact? He had gone back to his town and worked in a public institution with an orderly life, about to get married. When we spoke, we only dealt with daily topics. The name Huban became a taboo that no one mentioned again. I kept those 120,000 on the card without touching them, like a cold tombstone in memory of my miserable and tangled youth in those years. And like a task I could never complete, constantly reminding me that I still owed someone something. In my fourth year at the company, I paid the down payment for a small apartment, but with good views in the city. I also bought a car, not a luxury, but enough to move freely through this enormous city. Standing before the window of my home, looking at the lights of thousands of households, I had everything: career, apartment, car. By the world's standards, I had succeeded. I had finally become the person I had wanted to be most. But the void Huben had left in my heart had never been filled. Sometimes I wondered how she would be in the States. Would such a proud princess in a foreign land have made new friends? Would she still play truth or dare? Would she still change the destiny of some poor boy with such indifference? I didn't know. I only knew that if I didn't find her, that debt would follow me for life. One Friday night, the class WeChat group, silent for a long time, suddenly came alive. The class rep posted a notice. The following weekend, there would be a 4-year graduation anniversary reunion at a 5-star hotel's buffet restaurant. The group filled with messages. 4 years already. Great, rep. Everyone has to go. Those in the city, come out. I watched them pass without much interest. My current life had almost nothing in common with my classmates. It could only mean comparisons and bragging. I didn't want to waste time on that. I was about to close WeChat when a private message from Sue appeared. Chi, are you going to the meeting? No. Come on, let's go. 4 years. Let's see the old classmates. They say Lisa is coming too. That guy's doing well. He has his own company. Lisa. That name was like a thorn that suddenly pricked me. That boy who in the karaoke, with a frivolous and malicious tone, had proposed the 90,000 bet. He had nailed me to that post of shame. You go. I have to work this weekend. Stop talking nonsense. You're a director now. You don't have to work every day. Come out. I haven't seen you in a long time. I've taken a special flight from my city. I couldn't refuse anymore. On the day of the meeting, I drove to the hotel.